Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing great. If you are tuning in, I just hopped on early to make sure everything is good. Our awesome guest is going to be coming in soon. But as we prep the stage, I wanted you to all share with me what made you decide to want to join this live. I'm sure you have a good reason. Tell me where you're at, whether you are a career transitioner and you were inspired, by the story because of that. Maybe you are someone who is thinking of starting your own business, or maybe you already have a business and you're inspired by the story because you want to grow and scale. And hey, maybe the word empathetic marketing got you curious. Let me know in the chat. I'm so curious to hear that. We're still waiting for people to come in. I'm here just testing the tech, but I also want to, see how everyone is feeling today. And I'd love for you to share with us at what stage you are in. If you identify as an entrepreneur, if you identify as a business owner, what made you decide to want to join this live? Let me know in the chat. And let me know if you can hear me as well. That would be helpful. One time I ran a live where no one could hear a word I said. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, so let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me. And oh, yay, Robert! How are you doing? Oh, there's Chanti. I'm going to bring you in, Chanti. Our awesome guest is here. Woohoo! I was just getting everyone excited before you come.
Oh, yay, amazing. How's it going?
And we have people who already came in early. I recognize some people. We got Simone here from Canada. She is awesome, and she's also in the marketing space. We got Robert, who pretends that he can't hear, but obviously you heard me if you answered my question. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people rolling in. And I'm curious to know today, Shanti, how are
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a real rainy day here, so I've got my cup of tea and I'm just happy to be in my cozy office with you and all you beautiful people.
Yeah. And we got people who are also sharing with us, what bucket they fit into. We got people who fit into different buckets. I will call them the entrepreneurs at their organizations with that entrepreneurial tendency, but still caring about building their brand and knowing that it's important. And then we also have business owners here and someone who is starting up a new project to host team building and need to learn to make my projects more visible. So I'm seeing here the theme that a lot of people are here because they are inspired by your story of how you became more visible and you've helped so many people become visible with their brands and also grow them.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
Here.
So, you've been on so many podcasts before, and you have an awesome website that shares a lot of good stuff. But I had a little bit of trouble finding basically a source that gave me your end to end story. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it's a symptom of you just spending so much time amplifying everyone else's brand or what, or if you're just secretive
Yeah.
about your entire life. Which one do you think it is?
You know what? It's so funny because I feel like I've told the origin story a million times, you
Really?
know? I feel like everybody's heard it and I know that's not true, right? Like that's something that so many business owners, myself included, struggle with is like the importance of repetition. And just because you think somebody's heard something doesn't mean that they have, or all the new people coming into your world have. So, yeah, from my perspective, I'm like, what? That story is everywhere. But from your perspective, it's not. So, I got some work to do, clearly.
See, even the best of the best, like, don't promote themselves enough. So that's a lesson for us all.
Totally.
I want to start with your childhood because I didn't even know that you were Canadian when I heard about you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
where were you? Like, what part of Canada did you grow up in? And, yeah, just tell us what it was like.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town. It's not a small town anymore. It's basically a suburb of Edmonton now, but it was a pretty small town when I was growing up. And yeah, it was suburbia. Really lovely childhood for the most part. I've always loved quizzes. I used to get my mom to give me money and I would walk to the store and buy as many magazines as I could and I would jump to the quizzes first thing. I've
Wow.
always loved like personal growth and nerding out on all of that. Yeah, even as not a child, but like a young girl.
That's
Yeah.
pretty insane. Because for those of you who don't know, I don't know how much the LinkedIn audience knows you. I know you're a celebrity off LinkedIn.
I don't know about that.
And also, the people who are digital marketers, digital marketing nerds, we all know who Amy Porterfield is, but maybe people in the corporate world or in other bubbles may not know who she is. But like, just so you all know, like Shanti helped like multimillionaires grow their brand and get more attention and leads. And one of her big strategies is creating quizzes. And I didn't I used to think quizzes were silly, like when I was just starting my entrepreneurship journey. Like I didn't know about any of these, lead acquisition strategies or marketing strategies. And I thought, aren't quizzes just like one of those things that you find in a magazine, like Women's Health or whatever? I mean, they are fun to do, but like I never connected it with a way to get people curious and funnel them into what you offer in an empathetic way. So it's a game changer, and Shanti's behind a lot of female entrepreneurs and otherwise, like Amy Porterfield and multimillionaires. We're talking $100 million businesses. So you all are going to get a lot of value listening to her personal story, which you're going to learn from, but also some of the strategies that she's going to infuse in. So you grew up in suburbia, close to Edmonton. Are you still there or did you move somewhere else? Like what happened?
No, I moved like as soon as I could.
Just like me.
Yeah. Yeah, I left like 18, 19, I think. I moved to BC and I that's where I ended up. So I'm just in a tiny little town. I don't even know if you'd call where I live a town.
Yeah.
There's like 200 people who live in this tiny little area where I'm at, and then the closest town is like actually it's a village of 1,500 people. So very small, but beautiful in the mountains,
Oh
close to
my
the hot
God.
springs.
Wow.
Really good snowboarding, really good hiking. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
So is this by design? Like you enjoy nature, you're a quiet person, like such a difference in personality. Like whenever anyone thinks of someone in marketing, they think like, oh, they're into like big grand gestures and flashy things. But
Yeah, city
you
life.
chose like a quiet life.
Yeah, I'm a nature girly. I like to just my kids can free range. I can grow food. I have I have two cows and rabbits and dogs and
Oh my
yeah,
God.
like it's funny because from my perspective, it's not a quiet life. It's like full on, so busy, so chaotic. So I can't even imagine like living in a city where everything around you is also full on hustle and bustle and chaos. Like, yeah, I like that I can step outside and go for a walk and like not even hear a car sometimes.
So I was reading about your journey, right? And a lot of the clients that I've worked with, they didn't really have a typical career trajectory. I worked with someone who was a truck driver, did not, finish his degree, but then ended up landing a role that people would think you would need university degrees, even an MBA, building games basically in Europe. So it sounds to me like you did not choose that typical career trajectory and did not pursue higher education. Um, what influenced your decision? Like, was this something that was intentional? What made you not pursue it and then decide to even get into culinary field?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was intentional and not. So I knew I wanted to travel before going to any sort of post secondary. And so when I was 18, I went to India for 6 months. And that was so life changing for me. Like, I came back and I was like, whoa, what do I want to do with my life? I want to travel. I don't know that I want to go and sit under fluorescent lights for the next 4 years. And so I started studying herbalism and I was really into like natural medicine. I thought maybe I'd go in that route. I did like a distance learning program as I was like traveling around and working a bit. And I was sort of headed in that direction. But I had moved to an area close to where I live now with my then boyfriend. And it was funny. We didn't plan on staying there, but his really good friend, who we were staying with, while we were there visiting, he discovered that he had leukemia.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and he was like, I gotta go to Vancouver for treatment for a number of months. He had a farm, he had animals, and lots going on. So he asked us if we would stay and take care of of mostly the animals. So we did, and then I got a job cooking in this very cute little cafe restaurant. It was so sweet, and I had no experience cooking professionally, but I'm a good cook and like I know what I'm doing in the kitchen. So I got hired. I started doing that, and it was really fun. Like high pace, high energy. I love cooking. It was great. But maybe a year and a half after, and we ended up staying there even after he came back. I got pregnant, and I was like, okay, what now?
Wow.
I don't want to be like leaving my baby at home and going and cooking and that being my life. So that's when I started my foray into online business.
Wow. I mean, who here with us in the live, drop that in the chat, can relate to basically something unexpected happening in your life that influences your decision, right? When it comes to your career. I know that I've also worked with a lot of moms who didn't by choice, decide to leave their career or exit or even decide to stay at home. But something in their life makes them decide that, hey, there are bigger things and there's personal things that I don't want to neglect just for the sake of taking a corporate job, etc. I mean, who here really feels that, or maybe is in that stage where they're like, man, I gotta prioritize my work-life balance here. I gotta prioritize my personal objectives and not just being sold to this corporate America idea of the only way to be successful is if you slave yourself to death. And
Yeah.
no better words to say it, and I'm allowed to say it because that's the path that I took, and
Yeah.
neglected a lot of how I felt in those moments, and even the meaning of joy. Just the way you're describing that, your experience of being in the kitchen, and it sounds like you had some fun moments. Like, was there a moment in particular that you can remember?
Oh my gosh, so many, so many. Like there was this one guy who was the owner's stepdad, basically. His
Yeah.
name was Buddy, and he was a famous photographer in LA in like the 70s. And he was such a character. Like he would just come straight into the kitchen and bust my chops and like get me to make special recipes just for him that weren't even on the menu. And I would like invent things too. I would
Wow.
get to play around with like different ideas for what we would have as a special. And Buddy was just like my biggest fan. Yeah.
I can totally now see where that personality in you as a coach comes in. Because, hey, I'm just letting the cat out of the bag here. Shanti's also my coach. I'm part of her awesome community. She is amazing. It's not just quizzes, that she helps people with. She's a great business mentor. And the experience that I've always had with you and just watching how you coach other people is you meet people where they're at, and you're not very rigid in the way you coach. There's a little bit, I see improvisation going in. And I think I have a little bit of that in common with you. My clients will sometimes tell me when I go to sessions, like, holy shit, how do you do this? Every session you run differently. And so, I can just imagine that guy, coming in and just dreaming of these recipes, and you just make his dreams come to reality.
Yeah, totally.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. And we have Will here who's sharing. I have small kids and working from home is huge. Very angry that the corporate world wants everyone back in the office.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right? That's crazy. It's like 2024. Come on.
I know.
Yeah.
So you obviously you have to be there in person to work, as a breakfast chef. So you decided that it was important for you to spend time, with your first child, and you got into food blogging. What inspired you to even go into that path? And especially going from something that involved a lot of touching and, something that's physical to going into a digital path. And of all of the choices, you decided to start a food blog.
Yeah, again, it's so random. I had a friend who was like, "Hey, I just discovered you can make money with a blog, and here's this program on how to do it. Check it out." So I followed that, and I I built my first website, and it was so bad. It was horrible, but I started tiptoeing into that world because when someone just shares an idea and you're like, yes, that's the thing. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's perfect for me. It was a moment like that where I was like, what? I can write. I've always loved writing, cook, play it with different recipe ideas, like experiment in that way, use my creativity, and I can make money doing that. Like, okay, sign me up. So I just right away got started, and there wasn't a ton of resources around for how to do it at the time. This was back in like 2014.
Yeah.
Actually, 2013, I think, is when I first started like tiptoeing into it. And yeah, it was sort of the wild west of blogging days. But eventually I discovered this website, which is a food blog that's still really popular today. And it's been around since, yeah, like pre-2013, called Pinch of Yum.
Wow.
And yeah, like if you want cozy, delicious recipe
My goodness.
ideas,
I'm gonna
check
have
it
to look
out.
that up. Pinch
So
of
they
yum.
Pinch of Yum. So they don't do this anymore, but they used to do income reports. And so they would every month share exactly how much money they made and exactly how much money they spent. And at the time, they were doing like around $30,000 a month in revenue. And I just thought that was absolutely bonkers. I was like, okay, these guys, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I tried to do it. And of course, nothing is as simple as it seems in an income report. But I learned so much through that experience. And it did lead me to, ultimately what I'm doing today. But it first led me to make money with my writing and with recipe
Mm,
development for other food bloggers who wanted to outsource some of that work.
wow.
So, yeah, like I really had no idea what I was doing. It's a good example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. So, for anyone who's not familiar, like Dunning-Kruger effect, you're introduced to a concept, you learn a little bit, and you have a ton of confidence. You think like, okay, I know most of what there is to know. I'm just going to go full steam ahead. And that is the top of the curve. That's like called Mount Stupid. And then as you learn more, the curve dips way down. And even
Yeah.
though you're learning more, you feel like I know nothing.
That's where the imposter syndrome comes in, right?
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
at first you're like overly confident, maybe, and you're just overly optimistic,
Yeah.
especially if you haven't met yet people who are ahead of you. And then you start realizing all these learning gaps.
Mhm.
And that's what happened to me too, that I've shared with you in my own business, right? Like I started my business overly optimistic, and I think that optimism was very beneficial because it gave me the drive to keep going, and it kind of gave me a little bit of that confidence at the beginning. um,
Mhm.
and then the imposter syndrome started coming in like 3.5 years into my business, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm at this point where I want to scale. But then you see all these people who have scaled like $1 million businesses, and you're like, there is so much I need to put in place.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, I like to always say if you're feeling like you know nothing, you probably know a lot more than most people. You certainly know more than people over here. Like I was thinking, I know everything there is to know. I can totally make 30
Yeah.
grand a month with my food blog. So, I quickly realized, okay, maybe it's not that easy, but I did start getting some writing gigs, and I was on maternity leave at the time. So in Canada, gratefully, we get that time, right?
Yeah.
Like I had a year to figure it out.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, and it was within that year that I started getting writing gigs, started doing recipe development for other people, started writing articles unrelated to recipe development, but in the nutrition, natural health space, which I had studied and was and still am really interested in. So that was really fun for me. And yet, I was getting paid like $50 for an article that would take me 10 hours to write.
Oh
Like
my God.
it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't like big money at all. And so eventually I realized I need to level up. And then I discovered copywriting. And that is a skill that is far more valued than content creation and writing blog posts. So I leaned into that, got a mentor, studied copywriting, and started selling copywriting services in the wellness and nutrition space. And that was good, but it was a roller coaster. It was, some months were flush, some months were nothing. And yeah, that was a challenging time. But that's how it went from food blog to freelancer
Wow.
to copywriter.
What an incredible story. When you were starting out, it must have felt like, more like a hobby at the beginning when you were food blocking. Was there someone in your life who kind of gave you that extra validation to keep going? Like, how did you decide? I know you said that you knew that that was it, but was there like a conversation that you had someone where you were like, where they encouraged you and said, this is going to turn into something big?
My family was really supportive, like especially my parents. My dad lent me the money to buy a decent computer and a camera, and
Yeah.
like I could feel that belief from them for
Mm.
sure. So that was really helpful. But there was other things going on too. Like I was not in a good relationship at the time, and that is probably more energy and confidence robbing than anything else. Like getting out of that relationship is when things really took off, and I actually felt supported and capable of making it work.
And I often find that I see this a lot in people's entrepreneurship journey, and maybe like that sort of push that takes you from, you know, just working for someone to becoming an entrepreneur. It's usually tied to something personal that happens for you that gives you that extra push. Like for you, it was the maternity leave. And then it was also like before that, it was the relationship. Me, like in my origin story, I talk about the day that I literally decided to just make that committed decision and become a career coach, start my business. Was actually, um, I woke up with a fever, and it was before even COVID was a thing, and my boyfriend had left me. We had this, fight or whatever. He packed up and left, and I think it's those moments that kind of, I wonder, um, make us realize that you got to do something bigger in your life. You can't just stay where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I feel like I've had many of those moments, even after becoming an entrepreneur, where you have the moment where you're like, okay, I had to do something differently. Like the wake up calls never stop.
What do you think was, one of your biggest wake up calls before you made that decision to get into copywriting or even turn that into a profession?
I mean, after leaving that relationship, I realized I'm on my own. Like I have to provide for my little guy, and there's no one's coming to save me.
Yeah.
So it was really that. Like I think I started to take things a lot more seriously. And what was the alternative? Like going back to working in a kitchen? No. As fun as it was, I did not want to do that. I didn't want to have to leave my kid, who was, still a little baby, and go back to a more traditional employment. And just seeing so many people who were doing it successfully was like, okay, if they can do it, like, why can't I?
Yeah. Yeah. What got you from someone who was um, asking this selfishly and also for other people who are kind of earlier in their entrepreneurial journey, where they're getting business, they're getting clients, they're getting gigs here and there. Maybe they're at the stage of, I can't rely on this completely financially, or maybe they're at the stage where I feel like I have to charge less than other people. What broke you out of that to charge basically what you feel is what what is fair, because I don't know,
Yeah.
like, did you feel that that was fair, in terms of what you were getting paid for at the time, um, or do you feel like you could have charged more? And what broke you out of basically charging less than what you were hoping to get?
Yeah. Well, there were a few years where I was not charging very much at all
Mm,
for writing content or copy. And I think that on maybe I was probably undercharging, but also I wasn't very good. So I think that it's important that the skill matches and you can actually deliver on the result. And
yeah.
then what is the result worth? So when I was first starting out, I couldn't do that. I couldn't promise a specific result. I didn't have the track record. I know you're working with a lot of people, and there might be people listening who are moving from like corporate
Yeah,
to entrepreneur, and that's a little bit different because you do have the track record,
you
you do
do
have the proof and the
more
results.
than you
So
think.
you get to like jump to charging premium a lot
Yeah.
faster than like someone like me who is just like literally learning as I go. And I always thought of it as like I'm getting paid to learn a skill.
That's such a great mindset.
Yeah, and then but then you have to know when enough is enough. And that's really challenging too because it's easy to stay small, undercharge, keep everyone happy, especially if you have like people pleaser tendencies.
Mm,
So, how I broke out of that was really working with mentors and people who were ahead of me and whose judgment around my skill level I could trust. And they're
mm.
telling me, no, you're really good. You need to be charging more. And I didn't believe that about myself, but I believed them. So I think that like it really can't be understated how important it is to have people who know more than you whether something is good and can tell you like no, you should be charging this amount for this. And yeah, and then everything that goes into finding clients who are willing to pay that, all of it is nice to have support with.
Was there a particular mentor who gave you that big push and really, got the light bulb go off in your head?
Yeah, definitely. Kira and Rob, shout out to Kira and Rob of the Copywriter Club. They had this, I think they still have it actually, but it's a program called the Copywriter Accelerator. And yeah, it was that. And I like did not have the money to join, but I really wanted to do it. I talked to them about it before I joined, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're perfect. Join. You'll make your money back in like very little time." And I did. And they were both like championing me to really lean into quizzes and make that my niche and charge appropriately based on the past results that I'd gotten. And yeah, I just listened to them and ran with it, which I'm grateful to my younger self for doing that, because I don't know, right now at this stage, I probably have a little bit more ego in the room when it comes to business. If a business coach is like, go do exactly this, I don't know that I'm going to do exactly that.
I mean, if you look back at your old self, and me, and I'm asking this because, and I'm trying to weave in, some actionable advice for people here. But there's so many masterminds and mentorship group and business coaches and coaches in general. And I say this even as a coach, right? Um, there's just so many right now. Coaching was not as popular as it is at the moment. And it's becoming very hard to identify if the person is actually telling you what you want to hear in order to sign you up, or if they're being genuine in their
Mm-hmm.
advice. What do you feel is something that you felt at the moment? Because I know that you're a very intuitive person and you're very good at reading people. I know you are even more so now, having worked with so many, but I feel like that was something that you had even, in that moment. Was there a voice that was telling you that what they were saying is true, like especially with that level of imposter syndrome and not knowing what they know, like how
Mm-hmm.
did you realize that what they were saying was truthful and not just to get your money?
I mean, I trusted them, and I think they did a really impeccable job of building trust, and still do, with their community. So they run, I think it's just the Copywriter Club Facebook group, and which now probably has like tens of thousands of members. When I was in it, it was early days. It was a few thousand people, and it was so active, and they were so engaged. And yeah, I felt like I knew them. I felt like I could totally trust them. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is getting harder to do in the online world, and maybe takes a little longer than it used to. But to your point of just like trusting your intuition, I think on some level we know when
Mm,
someone just kind of wants to take us for a ride. Like I got on a sales call maybe a few months ago, and you know, he was saying all the right things. It sounded really great, but the energy was just off. Like something just felt a little bit off. And so I said no.
yeah.
And it's, yeah, not, no one wants to say no, right? Especially if you get to the point where you get on a call with someone, but you got to trust that.
Yeah, that's so powerful. When I look back, all the clients that signed up with me, even when I haven't sort of built that name and brand. And by the way, one of those clients, I don't know if she's still, on the live or not, but I saw her joining at the beginning. I was a new coach. I didn't have like a big name. I didn't have close to a 40,000 following. I didn't have a ton of testimonials. But a lot of those earlier clients took a leap of faith to work with me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of it is because of how I made them feel on the call and the connection and the chemistry we had, the commonalities. It's almost like they saw themselves in me. And
Yeah.
that's what made them decide, to work with me. And I felt that way with you too. Like when we first talked, like genuine person, we're both Canadian, we have so much in common. And just the way you were empathetic and made me feel in the call. So that is a really good point. And the thing about coaching, I believe it's not that the person is trying to fix you. And oftentimes, yeah, there is that objective, like, I'm going to improve your hard skills. and expertise in an area in order to achieve your goal. But most of the time, you're not going to do the work for the client. And you want someone who motivates you to do it and inspires you to do it. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. It's like going to a doctor who is technically good on paper and knows what they're talking about, but because you don't feel comfortable, like, opening up to them, you don't implement their advice
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
nothing happens.
Yeah. Totally. And it's so common, right?
Yeah,
So common.
very
Yeah.
common. So you got into that full-time in-house role, right? Was that after the mentorship program or before that you secured your first in-house copywriter role in that
Yeah.
spiritual development
Yeah.
company?
That was before. So that was, I was freelancing. I was experiencing like the revenue roller coaster. I was still like totally new to this process of having to continuously be getting clients, attracting clients, and also doing all the work. Like it was a big juggle, and I was struggling with that. So I saw this job opportunity come up for an in-house role, still work from home, but I just went for it.
Wow.
And yeah, so I got that position. And talk about not having any of the credentials
Yeah.
that a company wants. Like they wanted someone with at least a bachelor in marketing or journalism, writing on some level, and a bunch of experience. And I didn't really have any of that. But I talked my way into it and got that job and worked there for about a year. And that's where I discovered the power of quizzes, because I was creating quizzes for them that were just working so amazingly well. And so when that ended and I went out on my own, I joined that mentorship program. I told them about this experience using quizzes for this company that I'd worked for. And they were like, oh, perfect niche, run with that. And I was like, really? You sure? I don't know. And they just really encouraged me to go all in. So I did. And shockingly, it worked. It kept working. I kept pitching different types of businesses, getting clients in all different industries, creating quizzes and quiz funnels for them, getting really good results, and just
Yeah.
building that traction and that track record over time.
And I feel like that moment where you were working there at that spiritual company, and basically created a quiz for them, it almost feel like a breakthrough moment that a scientist would have, the way I read it and heard it from you in the past. Um, because first of all, how did you even come up with the idea to build a quiz? And you got into this role where in this day and age, like you said, um, a lot of people take these certifications and do these degrees to even understand concepts like funnels and I don't know, course content and sales funnels and promotional campaigns. I mean, I know people who go into master's programs to even know to run to be in charge of like a marketing campaign for an organization. And here you were coming from a background of like, doing some freelancing here and there, maybe doing some copywriting for websites. A lot of your time was spent like blogging, and you go into this role, and sort of just like learn on the job, but even come up with this incredible idea of launching a quiz. Like, how did you even come up with that?
Honestly, I don't even remember like what spurred it. I mean, it was an effort to do something different, because what they were doing to attract new leads and new subscribers like just wasn't working that well. So I thought, like, let's just create a little quiz. And it was on the chakras, and which chakra was blocked because we were launching a program that went into the different chakras. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is perfect. Like, this is just the perfect content angle. Let's see what happens. And yeah, like that just absolutely popped off. It was
Like, what are we talking? Like a flood tweet?
like 10,000 new leads
Wow.
in a month.
And what was it
And
before?
oh, like a few hundred.
My God.
Yeah.
They must have been happy.
They were so happy. And they were like, what just happened? No one was expecting that.
Did you bring their website down from the amount of leads that they were getting?
The website was okay, but yeah, like we were running ads and not spending a lot on the ads. Like
Yeah.
I think the average cost per lead was under 50 cents.
Yeah.
And again, like when they'd been doing that in the past, it was way higher. So yeah, I kind of knew I was
The
onto something.
magic. The magic of the quiz. And was this born out of frustration? Because I see a lot of what you talk about as well is like you're wasting, you're posting all of this stuff on social media, but then you're getting crickets or you get traffic and you go viral and you have like a ton of engagement, but it doesn't convert into clients. Was that going on during that time that compelled you to like, this is it, I need to figure out a way to catch all this fish, and not let it escape?
Yeah, a little bit. Although I don't think that I really had the full awareness of quite how big of a problem that was, not just for this company, but for so many companies at the
Yeah.
time. But yeah, definitely like understanding the importance of having an email list and being able to promote your offers to an email list versus just a social following was like ingrained into my head really early on. They had a big following, this company that I worked for, and none of that really converted into
Yeah.
meaningful sales. Like really, the only way that sales were happening was via email. And
Hmm.
that's what I see again and again and again and again.
And that's a lesson for a lot of us here, because I feel like a lot of people confuse awareness and the importance of it with actually converting into clients and sales. And people think that, oh, someone's just going to hear about you and buy. And especially when it comes to social media, you can't really take someone from learning about you and maybe getting to know you a little bit more to all of a sudden a client. It takes multiple touch points. And it sounds like the quiz, what it does is it shortens that period of conversion. It accelerates it. So it doesn't take you like a year of posting to get that client to sign up. Because
Yeah.
you and I talked about this a bit, right? Where I told you the story of like, oh my God, like I had some followers who were following me for like 2 years till they finally reached out and
Yeah.
became clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It speeds up the process and it helps you get to understand who your people are, who's actually in your world.
Yeah. Someone's sharing here that I've been told that drip email campaigns are no longer as powerful as in the past.
So like a funnel type automation sequence on the back end of a lead magnet. I mean, it it completely depends. It's not the drip campaign that is inherently powerful.
Hmm.
What is inherently powerful is the offer, the message that is held within the structure of the email campaign, and the attraction strategy that brought people into your world to the point where they're getting those emails in the first place. So, if we're talking about quizzes too, like anyone who's here and thinking of creating a quiz for their brand or business.
And by the way, check out Chanti if you want to build a quiz. She has like, and don't be intimidated because she has, many tiers from like, you don't have a huge budget and you want to do it yourself and just learn how to do it, all the way to like white glove. So definitely, and definitely look her up, and I'll drop her contact info in the chat, or feel free to DM me and I can send you her contact info. But go ahead.
Thank
I
you.
had to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so many times, like, people create a quiz and it has nothing to do with what they're selling.
Yeah.
But because we see so many like silly BuzzFeed quizzes on the internet, we think like it just needs to be fun. That's the point, and that's not the point. Like the point is for you to attract aligned customers who are going to want what you're selling and who are going to be interested in what the message of those emails in that drip campaign is, right? So yeah, I really like want to hammer that home, that
Yeah.
it's the message more than the medium.
And it's the journey as well. For those of you who are in UX and are nerds like me in the UX world, it's the journey that you're also taking someone through. It almost feels like in some ways, I almost feel like it's a sales conversation that is non-salesy, where you're empathizing with the person, their frustration, you're helping diagnose, and then really making them feel heard throughout it all, where they learn more about themselves, but also learn what's the next step for them to take in order to achieve their goals.
Yeah, that understanding that whole journey is huge.
Very huge. So I know we have like 10 minutes left, and I wanted to talk about two things. One of them is, you've worked with $100 million clients. What do you think was a big misconception that they may have had in the past that you've helped them overcome in order to be successful? And then I want to segue into you going from quiz queen to everything about business queen, and why you're so invested in helping entrepreneurs holistically.
All right.
Good luck with that.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So what they maybe didn't.
Yeah, so we'll start with the first one, with
Yeah.
your $100 million clients that you've worked with. You've worked with famous people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys don't know Amy Porterfield, Jenna Kutcher, then maybe you'll know Matthew Hussey too. Like, holy crap! Like, these are big names. These are celebrities. What do you think was blocking them from achieving their goals? Like, what is it that you helped shift that they didn't realize?
Yeah. I think in all cases, and this isn't necessarily something that they weren't doing, but like really zooming out and looking at the big picture of like what are we doing and why, and then looking at how are we going to do it. So I think really often companies hire someone in to just do the how are we going to do it, and they expect the internal team to and the leadership to be clear on the why and the what, right? But I like to also I like to participate in that phase of the conversation as well, because it allows the how are we going to do it to be a lot more effective. So I'm always trying to zoom out as much as possible and like really look at everything from that more holistic lens, which I think feeds well into the next question of like, why would I shift from doing this one thing, quizzes and assessments, which is a great niche. It's very specific. It's clear, right? The riches are in the niches. Like, why shift out of that? And it's not that I don't do that anymore. I do. But what I see is that it's great. Someone can go and take this idea and build their email list and do all of that. But if they don't have a really amazing offer, it doesn't matter how many people they have on their email list. If they don't have effective leadership skills or the personal skills to deal with a huge influx of new customers, the new customers it's going to feel more stressful than successful. So what I was seeing is I can do this one thing and help people with this, but I'm not blind to all the other things that I discover in their business that could be optimized and improved to make this thing work even better. And it just became clear to me that if I'm really going to be of service, I need to help people look at their businesses from this holistic place where they're factoring in the season of life and business that they are in and asking that question of like, what am I doing and why, before getting into how.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah.
That's an incredible insight and lesson because, I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, I think we sometimes get too much into the weeds and go into analysis paralysis without taking a step back, like you mentioned, and looking at the big picture. And, as someone who has a former product manager and was in product, I saw that a lot with my clients. I think when you're inside the jar, it's really hard to read the label when you're in the inside versus the outside, and you need a trusted advisor who can help you look at things holistically. I know that I was so close into, going to a rabbit hole. Like, I had people who would tell me, oh, your content, is viral and you shouldn't be writing that way. Even though I'm getting a lot of, positive feedback from my current clients, from people who meet me otherwise. But I was getting all these gurus who would just overly trying to basically fix what I was already doing right instead of looking at the big picture like you did with me and said, it's not your content. It's that, like, where are you, like, unhappy with, where are you burnt out? And for me, it was like getting on too many calls because of my large following and feeling burnt out because I don't necessarily have the capacity to have a conversation with every single person. If I did, I'd have nothing, I would get nothing done. But I it's like it's what you're bringing in, right, from your childhood and from being in a small town. It's create a business around who you are and how you want to spend your time. If you're introverted, or if you want to spend more time with your kids and you actually want to have the work life balance, don't bring that employee mentality into your business where you're just doing things without asking yourself why. And by the way, I'm not saying even as an employee that's what you should do. In fact, you shouldn't, whether you're an employee or a business owner. um, Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it aligned with my lifestyle? And then take a step back and ask yourself, is it that I need to reinvent the wheel, or do I just need to complement my strategy, make adjustments, or bring in additional things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So if there is one lesson that you want to leave people with coming out of this live, what would it be?
Oh man.
Very tough question.
Well, I'll share a lesson that I'm really working with right now, and that's been really helping me. And this might not be applicable to everyone, but if you find yourself sometimes getting like into overthinking mode and in a real tizzy and all up in your feels when it comes to things within your business, what's helped me and is helping me is this mantra of there's no truth in the now. And what that means is I can be feeling a certain way right now and in my head and overthinking, and that's fine. I don't have to make it mean something in this instant, I can just let it sit. And when I'm back to baseline and neutral, I can make a decision from that place. We
Absolutely.
always think we need to make a decision like in that moment, but you don't.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Quick question from someone here before we wrap up. I don't know if it is a question, but it sounds like a frustration. I have an incredible and very unique offer. However, I'm struggling to find clarity on how to find and reach my ICP. What would you what quick advice would you share for this one?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, there's a lot that we can unpack there because I my first inclination as a coach is to just ask more questions. Like what, like I would want to know what you're currently doing. Where does your ICP hang out? How much do you know about them? How much research have you done on who they are and what their desires are and what their challenges are? Great, we know your offer probably solves those challenges, but like what are they currently trying to solve them? Where are they currently looking for answers? And then it's your job to go to those places and get in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, quick rundown of your offers, Shanti. If someone is interested in working with you, who do you work with? Different levels, different stages in people's business journeys. What are some ways that people can reach out to you and work with you?
Yeah, I mean, I work with entrepreneurs at all levels of business from like just getting started to, yeah, 100 million a year. And I have a free newsletter. That's a really good starting point. It's called Spill the Tea. I send an email once a week with real tactics and insights from working behind the scenes of some really big brands. So get on there.
Absolutely. I
I
love
have
that newsletter.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a template shop. So if you go to chantizak.com/shop, you can check out all my different copywriting templates. If you just want a hand with some structure and knowing what to write. And you can learn about all my different programs on my website as well. I have quiz specific ones. I have Fertile Ground, which is our more holistic
Community,
business mentorship and community.
which I'm part of, by the way, and I absolutely love whenever I'm having doubts, imposter syndrome, going through a panic attack, building a quiz, or even just anything with my business strategy. I love hopping on those calls and
Mhm.
getting all of that love from everyone.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're there. So glad you're there.
Amazing. So I dropped Shanti's URL link. I have the direct link to the shop. I have a direct link to the website. I definitely encourage you all to go through the website and at a minimum, sign up for the newsletter because I honestly feel it's full of golden nuggets. And just for people's awareness as well, this is what I love doing, storytelling. Thank you, Shanti, for coming on and bravely sharing your story. My goal is to bring in more experts into these LinkedIn lives for them to share their story because not only do we get the tactics, but it's also very inspiring to, hear, the story behind it. And that is something that I also offer is I work with people to write their story for them. So if that is something that you're interested in, you want someone to zoom out because you forgot all those pivotal moments in your life, definitely send me a DM. Would love to chat with you. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Thank you so much, Shanti. I'm going to end the live stream, but feel free, everyone, to DM me if you have any questions or if you want to also get the link to Shanti's website.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.